What's up, my friend? Abby here, and welcome back to Ask Abby, where I answer your writing questions and help you make your story matter. I think it's the last Wednesday of November, right? So the last Wednesday of NaNoWriMo. How is NaNoWriMo going? If you're participating this year, what are you working on, and have you reached your goal? I see like a bunch of people saying that they reached their goal already. If so, awesome, congratulations. If not, don't worry. Don't worry if you've fallen behind. The point is to show up and have fun, right? You know this. If you have been receiving my letters, if you're in the letters from Abby writing challenge thing, you've heard all about this all month long. It's basically that the most important part is being consistent and giving yourself the time to be creative, okay? So that's what I've always loved about NaNoWriMo, is just that it forces you to sit down and actually write and stop procrastinating on the projects that you actually need to be working on. And need to, I say need to because you should be doing them. You should be doing what you love. So that's what NaNoWriMo gives us the opportunity to do. So comment below and tell me how much progress you've made and how you feel about your work in progress. I am still working on mine. I've fallen behind as far as word count goes, and I've kind of like, I wouldn't say like given up, but I'm gonna continue writing it obviously, but just so many other projects have taken priority over this project in this season of life that I kind of can't necessarily say that I'm sticking to the goal anymore, which is fine because I don't think that it's a necessary thing for a lot of writers who prioritize writing all the time. I mean, if you do like to do it for the challenge, then awesome. Challenges are super fun, and I love to challenge myself to certain things, but then sometimes November is just crazy busy, so other things take priority. So right now, my writing life looks more like free time, leisure time, when I feel really relaxed and inspired. That's when I'm working on this book. So that means I don't write every single day, and that's okay with me. And if you want to know more about my writing routine, check out this video that I made all about it. Okay, I have some awesome questions to answer here today. I'm super excited to get into them. Let's roll that intro and get started.
Why does your story matter? Good question. What if I told you that there's a science behind every great story? I don't just teach you how to write. I teach you how to change the world with your story and make your author dreams come true.
In case you're new around here and you're not sure how this works, here's the deal. You ask me questions and I show up here on YouTube pretty much every other Wednesday to answer those questions. And there are two ways to ask me questions. The first option is to hit the join button below this video, get inside the insider community of my YouTube channel, and then go to the community tab and post your question there. Option two is to go to patreon.com/Abbie Emmons and get yourself inside the Writer's Life Wednesday Inner Circle Facebook group, which is an awesome group of writers just like you. We all connect and share and explore storytelling together, and there you can post questions for me as well. Just make sure you hashtag it Ask Abby so that I see them. Okay, let's get to today's questions. First question is from Sabrina. Forgive me if this has been asked already, but I have a question I started thinking about as I'm working on my NaNoWriMo project and felt like I should ask Abby. So here goes. What do you think of narratives that are almost consistently told in one perspective, but you might need to switch every once in a while and not on a consistent basis to show how the series of events that eventually led to the scene I'm trying to write? Should I try and restructure my book to consistently incorporate the other perspective, or is it okay to have a one-off every once in a while for chapter or two? Any and all thoughts are welcome. Thanks so much, everyone. I would say yes, and only when you need it. Because if you try to incorporate it too much, just to make it feel relevant, even when it's not giving us need-to-know information, it's gonna get really boring really fast because we don't know why it matters, right? The first time we enter this perspective, we should know why it matters to the protagonist and how it relates to them directly. So if the first time it becomes relevant to the protagonist is like halfway through your story, cool. Let it enter the scene then and only then. Because the other option, consistently flashing back and forth, just to lead up to something later is going to feel irrelevant to the reader because it's disobeying the law of cause and effect, okay? You would just be shoving it in there so that later, when the relevant thing actually finally happens, we're like, oh, that's why we've been shown this perspective over and over again so many times to lead up to this moment. But you don't know why it's relevant until it becomes relevant, which then makes your brain confused at the beginning of the story because you're like, why is this relevant? Why am I looking at this right now? I want to be in the other perspective. I want to be with the protagonist. I don't want to be seeing this. Now, this does not apply to dual point of views. So if you're writing two protagonists and you're going to give them both equal screen time or story time, then it is absolutely appropriate to be flashing back and forth consistently between these dual point of views before they become relevant to each other. But that's a whole different scenario, and I made a whole separate video on writing dual point of views. But for this scenario, I would say go with your instinct, which is to only bring it into the story when it matters to the characters and you can clearly show the reader why it matters. Okay, next question is from Kathleen. I am writing a novel with 4 point of views. I'm working on the 15-beat story structure from Save the Cat for each point of view character. Here's my question. Since my antagonist never gets over her misbelief, do I structure her 15 beats differently? She has a certain misbelief, and this is what drives her to create all the trouble for everyone else. From her point of view, she is right, and I think this character will not change her mind. The 15-beat system works for the other 3 characters, but they all get over their misbelief. Will this system work for my antagonist? No, it won't, because the antagonist is going to have a negative character arc. So your 3 other characters, protagonists included, are going to be having a positive character arc, meaning that they go on a journey, a transformative journey, and they have this climactic confrontation where they have to confront their fears and misbeliefs at the end or close to the end, and they have the aha moment, which allows them to continue to the climax, right? We've talked about this in depth so many times. Check out my 3-act story structure series for everybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, but highly recommend that series because I go really deep into all of it. But that's the positive character arc, okay? That's the character arc for your protagonist and any other side character that you want to give a character arc, a positive transformation. For the negative character arc, it's a little bit different. It's actually the opposite, but not the opposite as in a reverse engineered version of the positive character arc, because the negative character arc still has a climactic moment. And I'm actually gonna make a whole video on negative character arcs very soon, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, I'll show you a sneak peek of the graph that I'm going to release with that video about negative character arcs. And here it is. Basically, you have 5 main pivotal moments. So you have the beginning of the story when your character is conflicted, the first fear-based choice they make after their inciting incident, the game-changing midpoint or plot twist, acceptance of lie, the moment when they fully accept their misbelief as the truth, and the tragic end. Here's the cool thing about an antagonist's negative character arc is they are still delivering a powerful truth to the reader, even if they don't realize the truth themselves. In fact, it's their refusal of the truth and their acceptance of the lie that really makes us think. We can ask ourselves what would have happened if that character hadn't accepted the lie, if they had come to see the truth instead. I also think it's worth noting that the negative character arc is not just for antagonists and villains, okay? It can be for any character in your story. And we're gonna go into that in the video. It's gonna be super fun. We're gonna case study some stories and I'll show you what I mean. But to answer your question, yes, your antagonist will participate in the climax. They will have a climactic confrontation moment, but they won't have an aha moment. Instead, they're going to embrace their lie once and for all, and that will probably bring them to a tragic end. And by tragic end, I don't necessarily mean that they die. They don't have to die. Sometimes you can think of something even worse to do to your antagonist to really punish them for their evil ways. There has to be some sort of consequence for their actions, or else the reader will not be satisfied. Okay, next question is from Adrian. Question for the masses and Ask Abbie. Inciting moments. I have 2 MCs who won't actually meet until the end of the story. So I'm the middle. I was gonna say the end of the story. That's a little late. but you know, I've seen it done. Okay, it's the middle, I'm sorry, it's not the end. Okay, I have two MCs who won't actually meet until the middle of the story, so I'm flipping between point of views about every other chapter. Do the inciting moments for each of my MCs need to happen fairly early in the book? One will for sure, but the second one needs a little more of a push. Should I poke and prod her along, or can I wait for a chapter or two longer for her particular story? You have to make something happen to your characters as soon as possible. And this can be anything. When I say something, I know that sounds so vague, but this can be anything that pushes them outside their comfort zone. Because otherwise, we will become quickly bored with character 2's point of view because nothing's happening to her, and we'll only want to read character 1's point of view. Now, maybe you already have something going on and it just needs to be emphasized. So I always like to say, story size doesn't matter. You don't have to have some big, explosive, inciting incident happening to both characters in order to push them both outside their comfort zones. You just have to make it matter to the characters. For example, I'm just gonna make something up. Okay, let's say your first protagonist is a guy who is fighting a war somewhere and he's about to go into battle and he doesn't feel capable, he believes he's not capable, so he's afraid of being killed, okay? And then let's say your other protagonist is a woman on the other side of the world who is about to go into a job interview for her dream job, and she doesn't feel capable either. She feels incompetent, she feels unqualified, that's what she believes about herself, and so she's afraid of making a fool of herself in this interview. Totally different incidents, but guess what? Our brain responds to both scenarios the same way, because both scenarios are characters being pushed outside their comfort zone. That's why I always emphasize making it matter to the character. Pushing the character outside their comfort zone ASAP, even if it's with something seemingly really small. So don't feel like you have to make something big happen to protagonist 2 in order to push them outside their comfort zone and create that intrigue for the reader. In fact, sometimes it can be fun to contrast big events with small events and highlight how surprisingly similar they are. Because remember, our brain responds the same way to both. Okay, last question is from Amy. This might be a dumb question, but if I begin my story with a statement or short paragraph to the reader from the main character who is currently in the middle of the story, does that mean I have to write the portion of my story up until this moment as past tense? It's a very good question. And no, it is not a dumb question. It's a good question because the tenses can be so confusing. So my answer would be no, do whatever you want as far as tense goes, as long as you make sure it is super clear to the reader when this is actually happening. When is this moment in time actually occurring? A story that does this really well, in my opinion, is Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds. And this is like a time travel contemporary, which is one of my favorite subgenres. And so it has a lot to do with like time loops and jumping around in time. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of like, when is this happening? But I was never confused, which is a difficult feat to accomplish with the book. The book opens with a scene that's going to happen later on, but it wasn't confusing because I think there was like a chapter heading that said, you know, this is before anything else happens. This happened, you know, 45 minutes earlier or an hour earlier. And then we go into, okay, now we're rewinding all the way back to the beginning. So those chapter headings really help to make it clear to the reader what we're looking at right now. When did this happen? And that is something super important for the first opening pages of your book because a confused mind always says no. And you don't want them closing your book and putting it back on the shelf or not buying it if they're just reading a preview or a sample of it online because they're confused, okay? You don't want to confuse them. And this is super timely because me and my sister just did a podcast all about writing an amazing prologue. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. Links right there. We discussed how to open your book with a prologue that doesn't scare readers away, but instead pulls them in and makes them super intrigued to see what the story is going to be about. So check that out if you haven't seen it already. Super good stuff. Okay, you guys, awesome questions. As always, I hope you got something valuable out of my answers. And if you would like your question answered here on YouTube, You know what to do. Either hit the join button below this video or go to patreon.com/Abbie Emmons. Get yourself inside the Facebook group. I think you'll love it there. I'm in there all the time chatting with you guys about story, and it's super fun. If you ask a question, make sure you hashtag it Ask Abbie so that I see it, and maybe I will answer it here on YouTube next time. Smash that like button if you liked this video, and be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I post writing videos and publishing videos every single Wednesday, and I would love to have you here in the community. Until next week, my friend, rock on.
Say hi to the Writer's Life Wednesday community. Hi. You're so cute.
It's tragic, not magic. Unless it's also, magic might also be involved, and then it's a magic tragic end. Yeah, that could work. Okay, be serious, Abbie.